a lot of interest in regional support to help implement the projects and plans they have there. They see a lot of regional benefit to some of those things, particularly near the rail station, the mall, other regional destinations that benefit the county as a whole, not just the city. So a lot of interest there. They've got a number of plans in place for various corridors through the city. And there's quite a few initiatives parallel to this one. There's a BRT corridor. So thinking about how that first last mile might work with that. There's the community enhancement zone studies and a lot of accessibility to the big shopping centers in the Modesto area that are of interest. So that's kind of what we have going on here. City of Oakdale. What the primary focus here is just getting more crosstown connectivity. So there's a lot of routes in the city right now that get you part of the way, but there's not really a good way to just get from one end to the other in either the north-south or the east-west direction. Seeing more connections with Modesto, with Riverbank was also important for them. And just better access between the local neighborhoods in the city and those core trunk routes along the 108 and other areas like that. As I mentioned, Patterson, we still haven't been able to reach out to, but just looking at the plan they have right now, it's really that east-west through line through the city that they have in the big plan right now, and getting more connection into the 33 corridor.
There's extensive north-south existing.
That we're not showing on the map already? Okay, good.
The bike lanes, the north-south, you have Ward, Baldwin, and then Sperry are extensively developed, and they were putting in new pavements. I believe they're going to go all the way out to Ivy on that. On this side, you've got existing bike infrastructure at Walnut, out Olive, and then Sycamore through, and then Las Palmas. As you're showing some there, there's existing bike support here. So, and I'm not as familiar, but I know that in the new areas, there's bike lanes along this entire route. So there's a lot of existing that is going to have to be put into it.
Great, appreciate that. So we'll make sure that all gets documented.
Sorry, just a clarifying question. Are we uploading the bike maps from the jurisdictions? Is that where we're getting this information and then overlaying it, or how are we getting the base map?
For the existing conditions, they're providing us updates to what they have. So our current baseline, which we haven't loaded in here because it's too incomplete, is what Stancog's been maintaining as far as what their RTPSCS has. So it's got a pretty solid list of things that have existed for a while, but it's the stuff that's been completed over the last decade or so isn't there. So that's what the jurisdictions are going through and marking up the maps for us so that we can add them in.
Thank you.
In your final plans, are you going to indicate what class of lane that's out there?
That's a wonderful question. And actually, that's part of what the feedback we're looking for from you guys today a little bit is where you see some of the potentials for really, really good class ones and class fours. Everything we're showing would obviously be at least a class two, but we would love to understand from you guys where you see the best and maybe lowest hanging fruit to get some of those upgrades. Oh, what kind of class they have now in the existing? Is that what you mean? Yeah, so for existing we'll have the information about what type of facility is now. But yes, for the proposed, that's what we're going to be going through, looking at the right of way availability, what's the best kind of class that we can fit without significant major changes or environmental issues. And then in some cases, there may be a shorter term and a longer term concept for a corridor if it looks like this is a really important connection, but it's really constrained. So maybe we just have to do a class two in the short term, but in the longer term, maybe we can get it to something nicer once we have some money saved aside for investments. So we'll be looking into all that.
Just to be clear, yes, we will have functional class, that bike types will be on both maps, both the future and the existing.
So I'm very new here, so I don't know. And I haven't brought my bike down here because it's dark both ways and back. So anyway, but I do have a question. Are there any jurisdictions with bike boulevards? So there is class 3 potential too, or?
There are some class 3 in existence. The one thing we have to consider though is this is the regional active transportation plan. So we're looking at what the local agencies are doing. But when it comes to regional connections,
Texted Jean because I felt like this was very granular already for an RTP. So that's why I was curious. Okay. So
yeah,
that responds to my question. Thanks.
there may be cases where there's a regional facility or some really important regional draw, like around the rail stations or something, where we might look a little bit more at those local type things. But generally speaking, we don't want to step on the toes of local jurisdictions that much. They've got their own plans, and we don't want to interfere with that too much. All right, so Riverbank. Again, there's definitely an interest in seeing some use of the canals for some good right of way for trails here. The Crossroads West specific plan is something they mentioned a number of times as an area where they have a lot of big plans for additional active transportation infrastructure. In addition to what they've indicated in their plan, they see Patterson Road as a really key corridor that they want to upgrade and get some high quality bicycle access. And then Oakdale Road, they feel like that one's got some good facilities for part of it, but they're not fully contiguous, and they would love to see those gaps filled in to make that a much smoother ride for everybody. So that was some of the initial feedback they had for us.
Oakdale Road, though, the part that is missing between Clarabelle and Sylvan. Well, not quite. It goes in there. That's in city of Modesto. So out to Clarabelle, you're Modesto on the south side. So that's only a 2-lane with just a small shoulder, and the sand and gravel plant, a cement plant at Sunrise, has people calling out. Their top load falls off, and you can't even find the shoulder in several places. So much gravel and sand. So we avoid that. But even the extension of Pellendale on the going east, I forget the name of it, that has infrastructure all the way out now to Oakdale Road.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Could you talk a little bit more about what's planned for the area around Laws Road and 108?
Sorry, let me switch to my other map here.
Well, right at the, intersection or where Laws Road kind of dead ends at 108. I guess there's probably about 100 yards, maybe 50 yards either side of Claus Road where it really narrows down to almost nothing. It gets rather dangerous.
So are you talking about like north of Kentucky, this stretch? Okay, up near the riverbed. That hasn't been identified specifically yet as one of the areas for improvement. And I don't know if it's because of the constraints you were referencing, but it's something we can look at a little bit more if you think that's a area that would have some demand.
Yeah, it's getting from Oakdale into Riverbank. The shoulder is pretty wide until you get into that area. And then as I said, it shrinks down to almost nothing. It's really dangerous.
Yeah, they have, as you come around this curve, it narrows down to maybe 2.5 feet, which is a substandard shoulder, and they have wide drains in it. And like all drains, the idiots at Caltrans put the openings lengthwise, not crosswise. So I've actually had a tire drop into a drain and cut a tire. Luckily, I didn't go down. So whoever designs those, it's not like Turkey where they're missing, but on that. And then as you get up here, when you get to Claus, it widens out because they repaired the slump on the shoulder and built a new deck. So that's fine going in Riverbank that way. Coming this way, as soon as you make the turn off of Claus, um, it's a little narrow and it's always covered with debris. Whoever's putting these trails, they need to sweep them because that's got glass and everything else. That forces you out into the traffic. Most of us will take and go off on a side street. Let's see, where are we? On up here, there's one that Santa Fe, and then we go down and cut over to Mesa, all the way out to Langworth, just to stay off that section. Once you get past that curve, it's fine.
Gotcha. Okay, so the 108 itself, there is some projects identified there to improve that corner area. So I don't know the specifics of what those projects are just now, but I'll keep that in mind, that that's something that are some issues through there as we look at what we want to suggest as a final concept for that.
Daryl, I might just hijack everyone for a moment. Everyone's given such good feedback. I might ask you to just show them quickly, like, because this map is designed to capture feedback. So after today, because there's so many things that you guys know, obviously, that we don't necessarily have documented, you might want to show them how to. Daryl, you might show them how to add a comment just so they can start to see how it works.
Yeah, so I have this kind of turned off right now just to make the map easier to see, but we do have a yeah. So let me just get that up here. Oops. Keep pushing the wrong button. Yeah. So basically what you get to do is it pulls up this little menu of different types of comments, and you can choose which category your comment belongs to. You could draw a full route if you want, or if you just want to point out a specific area. So we might say a desired bicycle project. You can select that, and then you can just point here to the corner. And then once you've done that, you can type the comment in here that it's a narrow shoulder with debris forcing cyclists into traffic, and drains are potential tire traps for westbound. And then we can just save that. And then that comment's been archived on the map, and it's available now for the full team to see and review. I have them generally hidden right now. So this website's live and we have been accepting comments. So there are quite a few comments coming in already available, but we can make sure that those are all documented. And then that helps us out when we're going through this, because as we're looking at each facility and trying to identify issues, if we miss something, we see those comments and we have them available. And they'll be included in the final report as well. So we'll have an appendix to that that gives that documentation of all the comments that came in. So even if we weren't able to fully address it now, it's documented in the record that that comment came in.
The other thing, we just make sure it's communicated to all jurisdictions that when they're planning these projects, they also plan how to clean them. Now, if it's just a class 1 or 2 on the side of the road, that's no problem. You use your street sweeper. But Modesto put in a separated two-way bicycle lane on the east side of Claus between Dry Creek and Briggsmore. They didn't have a street sweeper that could fit in there. And, leaves and everything else built up made it impossible.
Yeah, so there is equipment for that, but it is an extra cost that needs to be considered. So maintenance planning is an important factor for sure.
Let me introduce first time here, Gary Pearson from the city of Riverbank. And I see you're addressed appropriately. You probably wrote down today. And I've lived in Riverbank for the past 3 years. And so I have a pretty good working understanding of the city of Riverbank. So, and I lived in Davis for almost 40 years. So I bring that solid background as to how to move about a city and a region on bicycle.
Welcome and thank you. All right, so Turlock. So one thing the city mentioned in Turlock is that CSU Stanislaus actually has its own ATP, and they have quite a number of projects on the perimeter of the campus and within the campus that are separate from what the city itself is planning. But the campus draws a lot of bicycle traffic, obviously, so they definitely like to see a lot of emphasis on accessibility to that campus and safe routes to get to it. So their plan, as you can see, includes quite a few things around the perimeter and along the south. So does the regional plan. Those plans are not entirely consistent with what they're proposing, so that's something we'll be looking into. And then we had a couple suggestions for additional connectivity to the north as well to get into some of those other areas for folks that might want a bit of a quieter ride than the Golden State Boulevard. Uh,
So this question, I'm not sure if you can answer it here, but one of the problems. So, one of the problems that, like, just thinking about this area right here for just 1 second, when you've got Monte Vista, you have Christofferson, and you have Gear. All of those, every time they have a transportation speed survey, they keep bumping up the speeds. And so you have, like, on Monte Vista, you have a bicycle path-ish that kind of goes just about to the freeway entrance, not quite, but just about. And it goes down to somewhere here. I don't think it gets to Quincy. And then we just have shoulder that we have to ride on. It does reach Quincy? Okay. And then after that. Yeah, no, because I ride that and it turns into gravel, glass, and goats' heads.
I ride it quite a bit, but yeah, if you go out east, you can go east all the way through. Is it Hickman? And,
Yeah.
continue on out.
Uh,
We go all the way out to
You can, but there's not it's not a bike path on there.
no, but it's low traffic. And when you come into Hickman, you hit bicycle lane.
Well, your experience is clearly different than mine. So my point, though, is that, the traffic here continues to get accelerated on Gear, on Christofferson, and Monte Vista. Christofferson does have a good a bike path. I don't know what class it is. It's not it's separated, but it's not doesn't have barriers.
we kind
Painted.
of call that class 2.5.
So, okay. But so I guess where I'm coming from is then there's, like, on Monte Vista, you have parking and then you have the bike lane, right? Which means, of course, right? And so my question is, with this kind of thing, like, it shows that there's some conflict, but also, like, in what ways is there a possibility of having the bike paths made safer by way of having better traffic control, like stop bumping up the speed limit?
So that's a good question, and roadway design does impact speed quite a bit. So depending on how the city wants to move forward and what kind of projects we want to do, like if you make less space for the traffic and it doesn't feel as open and expressway like, then speeds will come down naturally. And when they do a speed survey, they can lower the speed limit. We also have AB 43 that the city can look at with the university there. If they can call it a high pedestrian, high bicycle area, you get a bit more latitude to bring the speed down more than we have in the past. So there are definitely some tools out there that can be worked on. The parking is another thing that can actually be a tool to help reduce speeds, depending on how that's set up. But there's also conflicts if there's emergency vehicle access or it's a freight route or anything like that, that puts additional pressure the other way. So depending on what the city's balancing and how they want to prioritize the corridor development, it's all stuff that you have to negotiate in parallel to try to make things safe for everybody. But it's something we'll be exploring and would love to get additional feedback from you guys and everybody else on where you see those challenges and what you might suggest to help balance that out.
I think also when you're talking about speed surveys, there is a limit to where you have to set the speed by state law. And so if the published speed is higher, then they have to, by law, have to increase it. It's just recently that we could go 5 miles per hour less than the actual speed was recommended before.
That's actually changed. That was changed by law 2 years ago, I think. Yeah.
It's only 5 miles per hour. You still have to go up.
No, you don't. That's changed. Yeah, it's up to the jurisdiction. It doesn't have to be based on a speed survey. I don't know the specific legislation, maybe.
They haven't fully abandoned the speed survey. They've given more flexibility under particular, but to be able to enforce the speed limit, you still have to be able to demonstrate that the speed limit is reasonable and appropriate based on the roadway usage. Otherwise, you can't enforce the speed limits that's there. But AB 43 does allow for a lot more flexibility, but there are still limitations to it. Correct. And there's actually a new one, I'm forgetting the number, that's just been introduced this year that could increase that flexibility a little further. But we haven't seen that actually authorized yet.
I also think, and I'm, maybe speaking out of turn on this, but this is also an opportunity for jurisdictions to put, roads on diets, and then they don't have, that does reduce the speed, and there's no obligation for them to increase the speed. But there's a lot of flexibility in AB 43 that didn't exist before. So it doesn't have to happen. And I'm pretty sure that at least in the Bay Area, there's a lot of effort to do that, to implement those types of design elements. And I would love to see it here.
Me too.
If you look at the city of Modesto, they have a map for a proposed project on Rumble going from, I believe it's all the way from Coffee through to almost the freeway, not quite, but they're putting in a lot of diets on that which is merely bringing extensions out so it's visually, they have the same lane width, but the drivers don't realize it and they slow down. It works over by MJC East. There's one just east of it by the canal, and they put a diet on that. It slowed traffic tremendously, even though it's the same width. So it has been, and that plan is also interactive. You can go on that and make comments on that.
Awesome. So just getting back to the Turlock situation, they do have actually some of the more ambitious plans of some of the cities in the region. So they're currently using their Safe Routes to School and ADA transition plan updates to really focus on pedestrian needs, in particular the bike needs. So they've identified a lot of places in the city where they would like to make some of what you're talking about, some of those slower street opportunities and making it easier for families and the more vulnerable users to be able to get around their neighborhoods by walking and by bike. And then they're also really focused on the ACE corridor and making sure there's safe bicycle crossings on the rail corridor as train traffic might be increasing and all of that, because that's a concern that becomes a barrier in the city that starts to isolate communities, and they want to avoid that. Yes, yes. All right, Waterford. So another one of the smaller jurisdictions. They're really have a bit of a limited plan for the kind of regional scale facilities right now, just focused on F Street and for the north-south, and then some connections through the little orange line showing there. There's already an existing facility there, but there's some potential to make it a bit more robust as we move things forward. So that's why it's still showing as a potential project connection. They do have some projects they've completed in the downtown area that we're not showing yet because we don't have that full map, but they're excited about it. And then there's the river trail to the south of the city that has been portions of it completed, but there's a lot of extensions that they'd like to see. They'd love to see that connect all the way to their neighboring cities, and just a really nice recreational amenity that they're getting a lot of support from their residents to have that completed. So those are their primary priorities at the city, but they're really interested in to see what happens at the regional level and how we can make more connectivity. So they're pretty on board. And then we have the county itself. Sorry, this map's a little bit bigger because that's a lot to fit on one. But you'll see there's a lot of blue lines on this map around the extension. So these are different corridors where we saw there was some potential employment or residential density hubs that could be connected along these. They might not be as heavily trafficked as some of the routes in between Modesto and the cities. But when we're looking at the really long range plan and how we build out a countywide system, it seems like these are pretty important corridors too. When you're looking to the north towards the Valley Home area and the connections along those, that's one area that's not really captured in the existing plans. And then when you're looking in the northwestern area, sort of in the Salida area and things like that, that's some other areas that we thought might be worthwhile to connect in a little bit more. The county staff mentioned they have a lot of infrastructure that we don't have mapped out yet, so they're marking that up for us so that we can get it captured properly. They also mentioned that they have some challenges with some community resistance, particularly in areas like this near the river, where the residents are just not that supportive of changing the way the roads work and having more bicycle and pedestrian access. But it's also a very key neighborhood to get people through if we want to have that river trail accessible to everybody. So figuring out how to balance that push and pull, keeping those residents happy with their community, but also making the overall county friendly and accessible for everybody is a big deal.
River are you speaking about?
Um, Up here, sort of in the north end of the county.
That little blue bump.
Stanislaus River, I think.
Del Rio.
Yeah, Del Rio, exactly. And then the county was also focused on Golden State Boulevard as a really important corridor to get the more contiguous and safe facilities, just because it connects so many communities. And it's a good alternative to some of the less direct routes that they have right now. But it's also a challenging route because there's a lot of traffic there. It's a little high speed. So it needs a lot of infrastructure work to make that a comfortable and safe corridor for everybody. So that's kind of the walkthrough of the feedback we've had and some of our initial looks. So as far as this study goes, we're going to continue to evaluate those facility types. So we're going to be going through each one of those and looking at what kind of barriers do we have, what type of facility can we make, how much is it going to cost to do it. And then we'll be continuing our engagement activities, getting more people onto the website, getting those comments, hopefully a lot more feedback from this group as well and the various cities. Then we'll be looking at an implementation plan. So once we have these all costed out and figured out, how do we prioritize what we want to go first? What sort of funding opportunities are there available? How do we get them into the RTP-SCS so that we can move things forward? Mike here is working on another initiative with VMT. I think we've talked about briefly with you last time that could potentially be a funding source for some of these projects down the road as well. So there's lots of opportunity out there that we want to set up the county to be able to participate in. And then lastly, obviously, we'll finalize the plan and it'll be there in a document that you guys can all use. So with that, I'm happy to jump back to the interactive map if you guys want to explore it and discuss anything in particular. We were planning on making this a bit of a workshop with you, but if you'd like to absorb it on your own as well, that's an option. So whatever you guys would like to do.
I was just curious about the timeline again of feedback collection.
So we're planning to be doing our primary feedback collection through the winter into the spring. We're looking at having this plan finalized by June, basically. And the constraint and reason why we want that to be done so quickly is because I was mentioning some of these other projects that are going on are going to be taking the projects that this plan recommends and using them for other purposes to start securing funding. So we don't want to miss those deadlines. And there's some heavy constraints on those projects on timeline. So if we're not done in enough time for them to be able to incorporate it, we could be missing some opportunities.
I might just add to that I think there's some intent as we conclude even the RTP and the other projects, the bicycle project as well, that these living maps we can going to transfer over to Stancock with the hope that we can probably find out a mechanism to continue that opportunity for ongoing. Realize sometimes the stuff just kind of sporadically comes up. That's a good way for StanCog to capture that.
This might be a little bit far-fetched, but is there any route planning to be considered for this project? For example, I'm at point A, I want to get to point B, considering the existing network of paths, what's the most safe, efficient way to get from point A to point B?
So I'm glad you asked that question. That's actually how we started. So we mapped out all of the nodes in the county where we have significant activity that might be attractive to pedestrians and cyclists. So where are the job centers, where's the shopping, where are there more dense residential neighborhoods? And then we created that sort of lattice connecting them all together, just with straight lines. So here's the connections, here's how important they are. And then we went and actually looked at what roadways would those connections most efficiently use. And then we did that all completely on a blank slate. We weren't looking at the existing plans at all. And then after we had that in place, then we took the existing plan map, overlaid it, and saw where does the existing plans align with those routes that we identified as key. And the good news is probably 80% was a perfect match. So the existing planning work has captured a good number of those needs. And then where you see those blue and orange lines, that's where we added some connections based on that mapping to connect those routes and to make sure that we had those connections in place.
That works, I guess from what I'm understanding, that works for your development purposes, but for, say, the general public, if they went on to, at some future date, they went on into your website, again, I want to get from point A to point B, given what's out there.
So you're talking about more for existing infrastructure and like wayfinding?
Wayfinding, yeah. I guess that's the appropriate word.
Okay, sure. We don't have that necessarily as part of the scope on this plan, but that is something we'll probably be addressing in the final plan document to give you some guidance on how that might work in the long run. Because typically what we recommend is that we actually create a branded active transportation signage system so that they can install that in different places and give you some good mapping. And we have some good examples of that we can share down the road of what that looks like. But it is a very important thing, and having the generating some actual bike route maps for the county is definitely a really valuable exercise and can help a lot with what you're suggesting, so people know where they can go safely and you don't end up taking the wrong turn and ending up on the freeway instead of on the nicely paved route.
You can, on Google, you can select bike and select your starting point and end point, and we'll give you a route. Komoot, Strava, Garmin is particularly good. You can create a route on that, and it will default whenever possible to the existing bike infrastructure. So it's out there. The biggest thing is on the county, if they can make that interactive so that those other services can upload the information to their map system, it makes it more effective instead of having a separate completely one, expecting cyclists to use 3 or 4 apps, whatever app they use, as long as that app can access the basic data, then it's out there.
Yeah, that would be nice. I guess my thoughts on that is, or with Strava, right, with GPS, there are some free memberships, but for the public in general, how could you do that using your base maps or your GIS maps that you have out there, plan to put out there?
Yeah, so we'll have them all mapped. There'll be lots of maps in the plan and things people can look at. If we can transfer this interactive website over to the county, it's very easy to make sure those plans are readily available. And then, as Mike was mentioning, once Google Maps has incorporated all of the information from this, which they do, they routinely go through and update on facilities as they're constructed. That's probably the default that most people use when they're trying to plan a route. So that will capture all those changes when that's up and running.
Apologies if we had talked about this last time. I don't remember if I asked. For the cities that have apps like Go Modesto, where they have citizens reporting comments constantly about any issue that they're facing in the city, are any of those, or were any of those comments also collected, or will they be analyzed at any part of this as well? Since that's kind of where people, at least in Modesto, are already putting comments out there, although I will say it's not really functioning well for cyclists. There isn't any category that speaks specifically to biking or active transit. You kind of have to make your own way in the app.
So we have asked the cities to share that information with us, particularly as it pertains to the more regional destinations and things that go through, because this plan, obviously fixing potholes and addressing like stop signs and things at the local level is probably too granular for what we're doing right now. But if there is suggestions like, wow, I really need to go to Vintage Fair Mall from Keys or something, and I just don't have a way to do that, that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for here.
Let me comment too. Often had to call the city of Riverbank to even get them to clean a bridge. And what I ran into was the city takes care of one side of the bridge, and yeah, San Joaquin County takes care of that point. The problem is the bridges are starting to settle. So when you're riding your bike, hang on.
I just have a broad question, and I don't think I talked about this when we were met to give me a briefing on what you guys are working on, but one of the common sustainable community strategies scenarios is speed reduction, and we're using that one as one of our options, right?
Absolutely. So we can't just put up a new speed limit sign as our speed reduction strategy, but when we're proposing different roadway structures or class 4 bike lanes that are going to take away some of that traffic space, that will inherently lead to speed reduction. And that is one of the primary ways to improve safety.
And typically the speed reduction scenarios are limited to highways and freeways. Is there, besides the speed reductions associated with bike ped improvements, is there any like major corridors that would fall into just the general speed reduction? Because I know we don't have jurisdiction over that. We don't have jurisdiction over anything, but is that included? Are those corridors included, or is it really just limited to highways and freeways?
I would say we're not looking at highways and freeways, really. We're looking more at the local arterial systems and things like that. We're trying to focus on where we want to encourage people to bike and walk. So we're usually trying to steer them away from those really core freight routes and things like that.
Yeah, I get that, but but reducing the highway speeds also reduces the emissions, right? So that's I just was wondering, like on that scenario, has it been broadened in general, absent bike and ped considerations, to include corridors on top of the?
I could probably speak to that. There's actually like a band where it's kind of perfection, where we want, because at lower speeds it actually emits worse, and higher speeds it emits worse too. Kind of, so there's kind of a band into your comment. That's something we're sensitive to, but it hasn't been considered as a strategy to adjust it, because I think we're also recognizing that some of the flows are more a response to congestion levels or things that are harder to manage with stops or speed limits. But that is something that's very front and center to us, because the region's very close on its numbers. So speed is a big concern from the greenhouse gas and air quality.
And I'll just maybe reiterate a little bit, because I know it's really confusing, but there's many projects going on concurrently that are addressing some overlapping issues. So this specific one we're talking about right now is the regional bicycle and pedestrian system in the county, which definitely has a lot of those roles you're talking about. But there's also the VMT reduction study that looks at ways to manage corridors and make them a little bit easier for people to take the more direct routes or land use choices. There's some transit work that's being done to make it easier for people to use that mode. There's some work to just look at the land use structure in the county generally. There's the RTP, Sustainable Community Strategy, going on. So all of these projects are being done together as one kind of big team effort, but they are all distinct with their goals and what they're doing, but they have those overlapping purposes. So Probably what might be a little tougher for you with some of your questions is those are distributed across those various projects, what's been going on, but they are all under consideration and they are all being considered.
The other problem is cross-jurisdictional. For instance, on Highway 108 on the west side of Oakdale at Crane, there is a stoplight, and if you're going northbound, you're okay. You've got a button you can push. It doesn't sense bicycles. They put cameras in, but they haven't activated them. But if you're heading southbound, there's no switch on that side. So we have to sacrifice somebody to go across traffic, push the button, and then it thinks that it's only putting traffic on the east side of the road, not the west side. So then we got to wait until the left turn traffic ahead makes it and then get across before it goes back on that. That one's not Oakdale. That one I had put through Caltrans and there's a request in on that. So different jurisdictions, depending upon if it's between a city and a Caltrans, it'll be Caltrans. If it's between the city and Stanislaus County will be the premier. It just depends on where you're at.
And that's definitely why StanCog is taking on this effort to help manage that jurisdictional integration of all of these things and create that smoother system across it. Because the local jurisdictions are actually they're all very proactive. They're all really focused on making these improvements. But exactly as you said, those interface areas are where we have that problem and where StanCog has the best role to play to help improve that.
Yeah, another example is Highway 108 and Old Oakdale. That one, I mean, I've sent numerous requests into Caltrans to change the sensor so I could just go to my neighborhood. Nothing.
Daryl, I was just going to ask if you could show them how to navigate to the map, just maybe from the website. How to get here.
Yeah, so this tool, obviously this specific URL is a little bit complicated, but if let me see if I can convince this to load. I'm probably gonna have to reshare my screen again. Like it's from the Central Reaper site. Find out if I can actually navigate to this to myself because I usually have the links saved. No, that's not right. Mike, I might need your help here for a second. So which one? Oh, Valley Vision, right? Yeah. Sorry, I usually have my link here.
And I do too, so.
If you can't tell, Mike's the overall manager of this whole situation.
Yeah, so this is the main website for all things related to what the projects that are going on. It's called valleyvision2049.com. So this is where you can find out just about everything, but you can see there's the interactive map and places to get feedback and also to find out about all kinds of stuff. But right there you can see there's, where you jump to the map. So just easy to find, but just wanted to know where you guys can find it so you can click in and play with it. And if you have questions or anything like that. And it's also, if you have questions about the other things that are going on concurrently, this is a good resource for you to understand what's going on, what outreach is going on, that type of thing. So.
And it would be amazing if you guys would all log in and put as many points down as you can. The more, the better. Honestly, we would love it, and share this as widely and broadly as you can with the people you work with, your neighbors, anybody else. This is fully open to the public. We want the more we can hear about, the better we can make this plan, because obviously we're looking at things from up here, but anybody who's down on the ground and really knows where that manhole is terrible or where that push button doesn't work, that's the kind of stuff that we can't capture on our own. So we'd love to have all that information.
And you can get to that through the Stancog site, but it's a little bit buried. So I'm gonna, Noemi, if you could put that, on our main page, because I think it's an important thing for people to be able to access pretty easily. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, then, and look forward to talking to you next time.
Thank you.
We can move on to item 6.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Harvey,
Public comment first, Mr. Chairman.
go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ron McMurtry again. Yeah. Just a few, you guys all made comments through this and yeah, okay. Okay, I noticed some things on there. So please, Daryl, if you could note some of these, a couple I already talked to you about, but I'm also sharing some of this for some of the members that have made comments of some of these areas. I'm a map guy, I collected maps as a kid. So I've analyzed all this for transit. So I'm aware of, yeah, some of the bike lanes. I do ride a bike. Okay, let me get through this fast. So I noticed the Ceres and 9th Street, the 9th Street where 9th Street meets El Camino. There's a real awkward turn there. And the current problem is there's cars parked there. So I'm glad to see that if there's going to be a project there, that will give the buses extra width because they have trouble navigating that right turn from El Camino onto South 9th and Ceres. So just a FYI for everybody. Patterson, looks like you've got your main east-west corridor there at Las Palmas. I kind of feel that I think it was member Harnerich mentioned since there's already some bike lanes on Walnut, which becomes M Street, to let's see if we can continue it. Let's connect Walnut all the way to at least Ward and maybe go down American Eagle. Sorry, I don't have time to go to all these websites. I do a lot of feedback, so I appreciate if you just take this down now. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, Turlock.
On Patterson, a lot of that infrastructure is going in with the developments when they put in housing. It's that way the city gets them to pay for it.
Okay,
It's unfortunate.
the complaint with the public transit is that the distance to bus stops is too far for people living in the northwest part of Patterson. And so if we have something going down American Eagle, I think that would serve that community very well. And then Sperry, that section of Sperry between, I guess that's Del Puerto and Highway 33, 2nd Street, definitely should connect that. There is now an all-way stop at Sperry and Highway 33. So that would be safe to navigate to access the bike lanes on Highway 33, 2nd Street. Let's see, Riverbank. I didn't get to comment last time because you spent a long time with all your feedback on the November meeting, but I wanted to let everybody here know. I already told Daryl this, but there's some, I think it's Measure Elfins, whatever, it's through Stancog. There's some funds for bicycle lanes, and I already submitted a request through Supervisor Condit, 1st District, Buck Condit, that I really would like better bike lane between Sylvan and Clarabelle, is it? To the Crossroads Mall there. And yes, it is a very narrow thing with lots of rocks and a few little drainage little things. I have been thrown off my bike, thankfully, to the right. But yeah, I have to get up in a couple of places and walk in the dirt for a bit and then get back on my bike. I had to search around for my sandal. So that's needed, but I just want you to know that's a project that's not associated with this because it's through some other funding, possibly Measure L. I'm not sure. You can ask Jose Luis about that. That's a project that the Stancog project already. So just FYI, that's hopefully in the community to the east of Turlock is Denair. And I noticed on the map, even I know my geography so well, even just looking at the map with just the lines on it, I can tell there's no connection between Santa Fe Avenue and Monte Vista. The high school there is on Monte Vista when it turns a little bit to the northeast. And high school students, of course, would be a good candidate for using bikes. Also, as part of this comment, I want to emphasize that poorer neighborhoods, you're not going to get people coming to government meetings. So I look out for these people. So
Mr. McMurtry,
yes.
you have reached your comment period. If you would
5
like
minutes
to
already?
use the app.
Mr. Chairman, I beg your indulgence. I just have a couple more. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I would like to suggest that Monte Vista connects between Santa Fe and the rest of Monte Vista, so those kids could take their bikes into Turlock and access the network. South part of Turlock is a depressed community. The infrastructure is awful. And I noticed on your map, you don't have anything down there. So we need to look at West Main Street at least, and a few other connectors. Lander, maybe there was some improvement on Lander. I don't know how far down Lander goes, but Lander, West Main Street, and connect at least to the theater on the other side of the freeway on West Main. That's all I have. Thank you.
Move on to item number 6, discussion action item. Kate?
Yeah. Hi, good morning, everyone. This is not my bailiwick, but I have listened to this presentation a number of times by our General Counsel, Monica Streeter. Took some notes, and I'm going to share them with you because Monica's on vacation. So SB 707 codified a number of changes in the Brown Act, and most provisions took effect on January 1st. The new eligible legislative body requirements are not applicable to StanCog, but those take effect on July 1st, 2026. So the changes are broken down into 5 main categories. The first one is traditional teleconferencing rules. The former requirements guiding teleconference remain mostly intact. This section codifies the 2024 California Attorney General opinion, allowing members of a legislative body to participate remotely as a reasonable accommodation if a member has a qualifying disability that prevents them from participating in person. And agendas must be posted at the remote locations, and public access must be allowed. And members must now use both audio and video technology unless the member has a disability that requires an exception to that rule. Members participating remotely must also disclose if there are individuals over the age of 18 years old and the relationship with those individuals. And members participating remotely are deemed equivalent to an in-person attendance. All votes taken, though, must be by roll call. The second category is alternative teleconference rules extended and modified. This authorizes teleconferencing with the traditional quorum and location requirements under specific circumstances. Expanded reasons a member could participate remotely include, but are not limited to, childcare responsibilities, illness, family medical emergencies, or military service. And the minutes must reflect the provision that a member relied upon to participate remotely. Remote participation for just cause is limited to 2 meetings per year for legislative bodies that meet once per month or less, which is consistent with our committees, and as well as our policy board. New categories of bodies. The third category is new categories of bodies covered under alternative teleconferencing rule. It's kind of exhaustive. The rule applies to multi-jurisdictional bodies like StanCog. Subsidiary bodies are defined as bodies that serve as advisory but not authorized to take final action. So the Bike Ped Advisory Committee falls into that group. These bodies can conduct teleconference meetings providing there is one physical meeting location and at least one staff member present. The agenda must be posted at the physical location but not the remote location, and members must appear on camera unless a member has a disability or technological issue. The member must announce the reason why they are not participating by camera for the latter. Elected officials serving on subsidiary committees, which does not involve this body, cannot participate remotely unless they comply with traditional Brown Act teleconferencing rules, which is to post an agenda and to note whether there was anybody in the room over 18 and their relationship. and also to allow other members of the public to participate with them. The StanCog Policy Board must make certain findings outlined in the memo before members of a subsidiary body can participate remotely. The StanCog Policy Board, as an eligible multi-jurisdictional body, may conduct teleconferencing meetings in open session, providing it adopts a resolution authorizing it to use teleconferencing at a regular meeting in open session, and at least a quorum of members must participate from one or more physical locations. A member of the policy board may participate at a remote location, providing the agenda identifies each member that plans to participate remotely, and the member participates with both audio and video. The remote location is more than 20 miles from any physical location, and remote participation is limited to 2 meetings. Yes, but this is also focused on elected officials again. Yeah. Specific to the policy board. New obligations, and the next category is new obligations for eligible legislative bodies. Again, this does not apply to StanCog, but I'm going to provide an overview in case this affects some other body that you might be serving on. It requires that legislative body promote public accessibility, two-way audiovisual platforms, translation requirements, and community outreach. Just also to clarify that StanCog is still obligated to provide those services upon request. This requirement applies, but this would be mandatory. You have to have it available. The requirement applies to city councils, county boards of supervisors, jurisdictions with populations of 30,000 or more, and special districts and large special districts meeting certain thresholds regarding full-time employees and annual revenues, and StanCog does not meet that eligible legislative body. So other changes, agencies are required to provide a copy of the Brown Act to any person elected or appointed as a member, and members of a legislative body may use social media for public engagement, providing a majority of the legislative body does not use it to discuss agency business among themselves. So again, no back and forth on items that are on the agenda, and that should be pretty simple. Just don't do a like or respond. So happy to answer any questions about those changes. And hopefully I can answer it.
I just want to clarify, a year ago, I think it was, it was a whole drama. The bus that I ride here, bus 10 from Turlock to here, Turlock Transit Center doesn't allow the county buses to come in if they happen to have to be. Okay. So the bus driver got off and went to the bay, but he didn't come inside. Sorry.
That's scary, Josie.
And so I missed it. And I was like, well, there's another one coming in 30 minutes. I'll just hop on the Zoom. And they were, no, and we had to cancel the meeting.
Oh, because there wasn't a quorum.
That
Yeah.
was going to actually have the Stanislaus bus people coming in to talk to us. So my question is, if something like that was to happen to one of us again, hopefully it won't, would these new rules apply to where somebody could at least do part of the meeting, on the Zoom until they could get physically into the meeting, and that they would be counted, so there would be the quorum and all of those kinds of things?
That's a really good question. I would just say too, you don't have to cancel a meeting, because if you still have items on the agenda that you don't have to act on, you still have a meeting. But I think that the Brown Act is pretty clear that you have to, this has to be advance notice. So in the middle of getting here, I don't think that would be a qualifying thing, but I'll follow up with Monica and we can come back if the answer is different. Yeah.
Sort of directly and indirectly related, I know the last was talking about providing copies of Brown Act. Are there any other information that new members like myself, I just started in the last meeting, should receive as they're being onboarded. I didn't receive anything, but for example, City of Modesto Commission, I'm on a different commission. They gave me an entire
Yeah,
breakdown.
that's a great question. And I know that at my prior positions, we provided an orientation and a booklet. So I'm not sure if we do that here, but it's another thing that I can add to my list of things we need to do in the future. And but I do think it would be helpful for you to meet a staff member, and then they can actually walk you through those things.
Yeah, we actually do have booklets that we share. So our apologies on not being able to onboard you, but we could do you and Gary at the same time. Thank you for bringing it up. Yep.
I mean, I'm not so sure that it's so much about budget cuts as it's about just being understaffed right now. And my sort of reticence to fill those positions, given that there's a new executive director that will be on board probably, if not sometime in February, March. Yeah, yeah. And unless everything goes awry, and then I'll still be here.
We move on to item 7, member reports.
No reports on my end.
Pardon me?
No reports on my end.
Well, I've got one report out of Oakdale, and I think it was shown on the maps that you put up when you discussed Oakdale. But at any rate, on First Street between F and J Streets, there was a Class 2 bike lane added, which makes it a lot easier to get from, and I'll call it the north to the south or south to north end of town. Anyone else?
Sorry, I was going to just say, I want to thank the member of the public who came and spoke about Turlock, and especially the area that I live in. The ability to bike and walk is just treacherous, would be the most kindest word that I could say. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's great to be here. First meeting. Just a comment in the city of Riverbank. They just completed and approved at the overpass that crosses the railroad tracks. There's a sweep curve, and they did a fantastic job of putting in a separation barrier and a bike lane and a pedestrian. That's great. It went 2 blocks. Yeah, but hey, I got a new clear path to the next street. It's fantastic. They just should have taken it all the way around. Anyway, that's my report.
I would just have one comment. And it's local jurisdiction. We don't have control on this, but we're at a bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee, and I have to put my bike in here. There is no secure parking in downtown Modesto. And as I've said before, bicycle racks with any lock on that are merely shopping displays for thieves.
Plus, 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 plus.
I agree with that 100%.
You know, an empty parking spot in the garage across the street could hold several secure lockers. And so I encourage you to talk to the people at the city of Modesto.
And my comment is, I secure my bike to the tables outside the local coffee shop, and I have multiple lots.
Unfortunately, the best thief-proof, supposedly, U-shaped bicycle lock made, about $340. It took GCN less than a minute. I think it was 32 seconds with a $30 battery-operated angle grinder to cut through it. I mean, and if they don't take that, just the computer, lights, including the radar unit, and my pedals, that's $2,500 replacement if I can just take it off the bike.
I had just a question, actually. When are there, I think this is maybe a little off topic, but when are there announcements about more free transit days, months, et cetera, for the public?
You can find that on the Stan RTA website. Uh, They are going to be doing the next one, free rides in March.
Go green.
And they provide a calendar for the entire, like, I guess, how far in advance are they letting people know about it?
They have that calendar for a year. It's the same every year, so they should be able to get it to you. But
Okay.
I think Cassandra has the exact dates of the next free ride.
It'll be March 15th to the 21st. That'll be for Stan RTA and Turlock Transit.
Great, that's helpful to know. And Stan RTA, it's for the entire, all the cities in the county. It's not just per city.
They service the whole county, and then you have Turlock Transit that just simply serves
A
Turlock.
little, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And they're on the website too, though, or that's, you would have to
They
look at
should
that
be,
separately. Okay.
if you can't get it, Annalisa, let me
Yeah.
know, and we can put you in, Cassandra and I know, and we could put you in touch with somebody at Stan RTA that will get you the information you
Yep,
need.
got it. Thank you.
The only other comment I'd have is for our consultants on the planning for a bicycle route. Santa Fe is very important because it follows the Amtrak route going south. So for instance, if we want to ride to Fresno and take Amtrak back, that's the route we use. And there's stops and stations along that route. So it is very important that be kept in consideration. That's one of the connector routes, which is one of the things that we can concentrate on. Within communities, not a lot you can do as the override advisory committee, but connecting to Merced County would be really important.
We're on to item 8 if we're finished with 7. Executive Director, meet and greet.
Hi. I'm happy to be here and working with the staff on all of the things that we are trying to get done and better serve the community, better serve our committees. So we appreciate your patience. For those of you who didn't read the more than exciting article in the paper, I am recently retired from the Napa Valley Transportation Authority, executive director there. But one thing that wasn't in the article, well, there's a lot of things that wasn't in the article, but one thing that might be pertinent to all you is I'm probably, and I don't know this because I haven't done any major research on this, but probably the only transportation executive that was awarded Bicycle Commuter of the Year. So yeah, I knew you guys would like that.
Love to
And
hear
so
it.
I'm an avid cyclist. I have 3 bikes, but 4, right? And it's killing me to drive down here and back. And I don't bring a bike with me because, like I said, it's dark. I do ride in the dark in Napa, but I'm not going to ride in the dark here. Yeah, but Napa is like at 5 o'clock in the morning. So every year I do this ride that I have to get 500 miles in for a fundraiser for the Napa Valley Vine Trail Coalition, which I'm on the board of, and the also another river path. I'm on the board for that too. But we do that fundraiser every month, and I get up at 4 and I'm out on the road at 4:30. There's nobody there. It's wonderful. Anyway, I digress. So now I am actually, because I'm not an official in Napa anymore, spending a lot of time defending the Class 4 infrastructure that was put in on my road where I live. On next door, which is like a total waste of time, but it gives me some sort of a certain amount of satisfaction. But the city actually put in a parking protected Class 4, and it's great. And there is, of course, some drivers that aren't a fan, but it has slowed down the traffic, and I think it's made it a much safer infrastructure. We have also been very, very advocates in Napa and also delivering Class 1, which is a super hard facility to deliver. I just want you all to know that. So you have to be patient with your jurisdictions. It's like $3 to $4 million a mile now, and that's if you don't have any of the major mitigation requirements associated with building those facilities. So anyway, I'm again happy to be here, and I don't know how long I'm going to be here, so I don't think I'm going to have a huge influence on bike ped infrastructure, but I appreciate the work that you guys are doing to make sure that that makes it safer for everybody to use our road infrastructure. Happy to answer any questions, but I think I probably delivered way too much information as it is.
Thank you, Kate. Our next meeting is April 1st. Jenny? I hope it's not a. And other than that, if there aren't any other comments, we're adjourned. And there's donuts left over. I'm getting one.